There's a breaking news story that's coming into us right now, and this is somewhat alarming. If you are one of 100 million Americans who has some type of account, maybe a credit card, maybe you filled out an application for a credit card with Capital One, you have been hacked. As a matter of fact, it's not just in the United States. It's also in apparently parts of Canada as well. Again, this is a breaking news story. I think what you just saw there was what? Michele Greenstein is joining us now. She's come back after the other story you did earlier for us on Huawei. You're doing double duty tonight, by the way.
Yes, sir.
To bring us the very latest on what's going on with this Capital One story. So what have you learned?
Sure. So Capital One has announced that a hacker has accessed about 106 million credit card applications. We have about 80,000 bank account numbers that have been compromised and 140,000 social security numbers that have been exposed as well. Now, today, the FBI actually arrested a Seattle woman named Paige Thompson, and federal prosecutors say it was she who broke into these servers that Capital One had rented from a cloud computing company. Now, the cloud computing company is not named in the court documents. However, we do know that Thompson is a former employee of Amazon Web Services.
You know, as I look at this, I'm wondering how it is that one person, just not being a tech guy, could have accessed all this. And I also read moments ago, correct me if I'm wrong, that this person was actually bragging about their exploits on social media. Is that true?
That is true, and that may be why they were able to make an arrest so quickly. And to your other point, some may even say that this case is an example about maybe one of the dangers of cloud computing and how securing your data may fall lower on the list of priorities from a business than making money off of you. Now, federal prosecutors say that this theft occurred between March and July of this year, although Capital One only found out on July 19th, so quite recently. Although Capital One stresses that no credit card numbers were compromised, no login credentials were exposed, and that an internal investigation is underway. Now, this hack is expected to cost the company at least $100 million. And Capital One chairman and CEO actually released this statement today. Let's take a listen to what he had to say. He said, "I sincerely apologize for the understandable worry that this incident must be causing those affected, and I am committed to making this right."
Thank you for making sense of that quote that came up a little while ago. I wasn't sure what we were getting up. Do we know anything about this person, by the way?
Well, we do.
The hacker. By the way, but before you report anything, for those of you watching us and not watching CNN or MSNBC or any of the other networks, they're probably telling you right now that she's got connections to the Kremlin. Am I wrong?
I didn't see any coverage saying that, but I haven't seen it. Maybe.
Have you ever seen a story about hacking without somebody in the U.S. media saying it's the Russians?
Right. I mean, maybe this story is getting a lot of traction, as it should be, because there's one easy target. There's one person being accused. It's very easy to tell this story, right? But sometimes the systemic breach of our data or like our data collection goes a little bit less unnoticed when it's, institutionalized. But according to Thompson's court records, you asked the question, what do we know about her? Well, we know that her court hearing is scheduled for Thursday. And according to Bloomberg, in court today, she actually broke down, apparently, and laid her head down on the table during her hearing. Now, in terms of what she's charged with...
But the reason I'm asking the question is, and I'd love to find out, and I'm sure we probably don't know the answer to this question yet, but I would love to know at some point. There are people who do these types of things because they're trying to make a statement. In other words, these greedy SOBs, I'm going to go after them, I'm going to show them, and I'm really smart, and I'm going to take them down. And there are people who do this because they're greedy and they really want to use other people's social security numbers to make millions of dollars.
Just because they can, right.
Which one is she? We don't know.
There's no definitive information about what her motives may have been yet. We do know that she's been charged with a single charge of computer fraud and abuse, and she faces the maximum penalty of $250,000 as a fine.
When we look at hacks like this, do we know how often it is a person or group of persons versus an institution, a nation state, a group? Have you looked into the whole hacking thing that seems to be in the news all the time now?
Well, let's remember that this is just days after the settlement that came from the Equifax data breach, and that's a breach that affected 147 million U.S. citizens. So you may be able to say that this is something that's becoming more common as we start relying on what's called the cloud for a lot of our computing. It's possible, though, that the single actors like that you're speaking of get a bit more media attention when they hack something thing than organizations do.
Shouldn't we be worried, though, that a company like Capital One is saying, oh, it's going to cost us $100 million to get this right? The fact that you could just throw out $100 million to get something right about a problem like this means that maybe this particular model that we're using is suspect, right?
I mean, I think that's a great point. It's always the case in a profit-based system that you're going to make decisions based on profit. So if securing your data falls lower on the list of priorities than making money from you, then that's the way it's going to go. And this company is definitely going to face a fine, just like Equifax had to pay out some money.
Right.
But ultimately, we may not see any structural changes to how our data is being kept secure or not secure unless it becomes profitable to make those structural changes.
Because what you're saying is, in these cases, it's already cooked into the soup. That's a problem. Great report. Thank you.